morning. Right now it is 4:12 on 4/12, and the inspiration for this came somewhere around 11:30 last night on 4/11, and I was tired. So I looked up 4:11. It means unspeakable, the Greek 4:11 from the Strong's Concordance. I thought, how am I going to pull this together? It's almost midnight. It's not going to be 4:11 much longer. And so I looked up the Greek 4:12 to see, well, if I do it tomorrow, what's it going to mean then? It means unspeakable. So at 3-something this morning, God awakens me. Because, the only reason we wake up is because God wakes us up, spiritually and physically. And it was time to get ready and to do this thing at 4:12 on 4:12, because it's all about 4:12, unspeakable. So, been watching a Rabbi from San Antonio, Chaim Bloch, and I've got him lined up here, ready to go. I'm just going to use a couple of his words, and then I'll tell you what's going on here. So this is Chaim Bloch.
So there was this.
He starts with a story. So there was this. We're going to leave that right there. Let me turn this off so I don't have to look at that extra light coming at me. So he's going to start with a story. This is his video about King David. I'll leave the link. There's another link that I really want you to see, which is his source, his take on Elijah and what Elijah will do and how that will all work. So, I'm watching the rabbis. I thought, maybe I need to start with a story. I got kids' stories. Henry Hubert Hankey, Camellia Humph, Ichthyus Jordan, Francesca Frond, unpublished, but there. And so, the Lord put some thoughts in my head. And it was about Nehemiah. So there's this little boy. His name is Nehemiah. And he stutters. And he doesn't understand why he stutters, and it causes him problems. And one day he's at school, and there's this new kid. The new kid shows up, and he's kind of a bully. And he's asking around who's who, what's what, and he looks over at Nehemiah, and he asks one of his friends, "Who's that kid?" They said, "Oh, that's Nehemiah. He stutters." "Really?" And so he goes over and he says, "Hey, what's your name?" And he goes, "My name's Nehemiah." He goes, "Nehemiah? What kind of name is that?" He said, "It's my father's name. I got named for my father and my grandfather." And the kid looks at him again. He goes, "Are you sure you're saying that right?" He goes, "Well, I got stutter, and yeah, Nehemiah." Kid says, "What does it mean?" He said, means God comforts." And the kid goes, "Well, that's funny. That's what my name means, but my name's not Nehemiah." He goes, "Are you sure you know how to pronounce your own name?" "Well, yeah. Well, they go their separate ways, and Nehemiah goes home, and he walks through the door, and his mom's getting ready for the weekend, and all the things are in place, and she's bringing out the candles to light, and he says, "Mom, what's my name?" She looks at him. She says, "What? Nehemiah? What do you mean, what's your name?" "Your name's Nehemiah." He said, "Are we sure we're pronouncing it right?" And she says, I'm pretty sure, but it's your father's name. Maybe you should go ask your father. Well, his father's not home yet. So he waits and he waits and he waits and he waits. And his father comes home. But there's things to be done and dinner to be had. And so he waits. And after dinner, he just walks up to his dad and he sticks his face right in his stomach. He starts to cry. His dad can feel the tears soaking through his shirt. He says, Nehemiah, what's wrong? He says, Dad, what's my name? He says, Nehemiah, how can you ask me a question like this? Your name is Nehemiah. It's always been Nehemiah. He said, are we sure it's Nehemiah and not said some other way? And his father goes, well, Nehemiah, you were named for your father, for me. And I was named for my father, and his father for his father, and his father for his father. We've always called ourselves Nehemiah. So, are you sure, Dad? And his father says, well, I mean, I heard my name my whole life. And my father named me after him, and he'd heard his name his whole life, and his father named him after him, and he'd heard his name his whole life, and we're pretty sure that it hasn't changed. What do you think? Oh, okay. Well, there's a boy at school says I don't say my name right. Well, that's because you stutter. No. He says his name means the same thing my name means, and I don't say my name right. He says, Nehemiah, you say your name with a stutter, but you still say Nehemiah, don't you? He says, that's your name. You're saying it right. What's this boy's name? I don't know. He says, well, you go ask him his name, and you come back and tell me, and we'll talk about it. Well, that gets him through the night and through the weekend, and he goes to school, and he looks at the little boy, and he says, well, what's your name? He says, my name. My name's Nehemiah. But how you spell it? He says, Nehemiah. Nehemiah. I don't know if I spelled that right, but we're going to go with the story on this one. He says, well, that's how I spell my name. And they mean the same thing. He says, yeah, I know. That's how I know you're not saying your name right, kid. He says, my dad says I got my name from my father, and his name from his father, and it's always been Nehemiah. He says, well, I don't know. I know my name. And the kid walks away. And Nehemiah goes home and he tells his father. He says, Dad, he says his name is Nehemiah. His father looks at him. He says, Nehemiah? Well, I've never heard of any of our people being called Nehemiah. But I suppose, probably what happened is somewhere along the line, somebody was angry at their father and thought, I don't like my father's name. And they decided to change it. But you can't go against everything we do, So he probably just changed the way it was said. Maybe that's what happened in his family. But in our family, we've been Nehemiahs all the way down. Thanks, Dad, Nehemiah says. So the other kid goes home and he says, Dad, there's this kid at school, and he's got the same name as me, and it's spelled the same, and it means the same thing. He says, but the kid's got a stutter, and he can't say it right. And he says, son, don't pick on a kid just because he stutters. That's God's purpose. It's between him and God as to why he stutters. If a kid can't say his name because he stutters, he says, no, Dad, it's not that he can't say it because he stutters. it's that he can't say it because he's not saying it right. I mean, my name's Nehemiah, right? And he goes, yeah. He says, this kid's name is Nehemiah. And he keeps saying Nehemiah, and I keep telling him it's wrong. So, oh, well, I guess it's time to tell you. My father was a very mean man, and he upset me a lot in life. And every time I think about him, I just get upset. I don't like to hear the sound of his name because it upsets me. So after he passed on, I moved towns. I met your mother. I changed my name. I said, I don't want to be that name anymore. I'm not even going to say it. He says, so I became Nehemiah. And I named you Nehemiah because you're my son, my firstborn. And so our name is now Nehemiah because I don't like the sound of that other name. It just makes me angry. He says, so really, I'm actually saying my name wrong? And he said, it's not that you're saying it wrong, son. It's that it's been changed with a purpose. And Nehemiah doesn't really understand why his name would be changed for a purpose, but he understands that his father is his father, and he's made changes that Nehemiah doesn't understand, but it's okay. His dad did it. And he goes to school the next day and he sees Nehemiah. And he says, hey, kid. And Nehemiah walks over. He goes, yeah. He says, I'm sorry. I've been picking on you because you don't say your name right. He goes, yeah, I know. He says, well, that's not really true. He said, my dad's name was Nehemiah too, but he changed it to Nehemiah because of some stuff in the family. So we both have the same name and it both means the same thing, but I say mine this way and you say yours that way, and I just want to say I'm sorry. Nehemiah's blown away. He says, thank you. And he goes home. He tells his father, oh, Dad, so much better. He says, you were right. He changed his name. His father changed his name. They didn't like the way Nehemiah sounded because it reminded him of something bad in their past. He says, but really my name is Nehemiah. And he said, good son. I'm glad you're okay with this. He says, in the stuttering, he goes, yes, son. He goes, I'm okay with it. And he goes, really? He said, yeah. I never would have come to understand the truth if I hadn't been a stutterer, and this wouldn't have happened. I'm glad you see that. God does things for a reason. We don't always understand. And that's the story. God does things for a reason we don't always understand. Today is the day of unspeakable. And Nehemiah is a kid who doesn't speak right. And the Lord just poured this out for me last night. And I guess it's time to explain why I think this came and the way it came and for what reason. So if I'm right about this, Nehemiah means the comfort of Yah, or Yah comforts. And I'm going to have to look this up really fast to see if I can get it. Because unfortunately what I need is on the phone that I'm photographing with. And there's only so many things I can pull together and make right at one time. So, and you know what? I'll put these things up in this corner when I find them. But I do need to look at this. So let me type in Nehemiah. And using Blue Letter Bible, it's an amazing thing here. So it's the Hebrew 5166, and it is Nehemiah, and you should see it up there in just a second. Jehovah comforts. And so this little boy's name, the name that the Lord gave me for this character, is perfect because his father comforted him, and he was able to bring truth to the other little boy about his own name, which probably brought comfort to that family because now he understands his father's relationship with his father, and maybe there's some compassion there and understanding. And it goes back father upon father upon father until whoever God gave the name Nehemiah to first, and they understand, look, your name is God-given. There's a purpose. Names mean something. Nehemiah means the one that Jehovah comforts. God comforts. So why are we talking about this story today? Because the name of God has been forgotten. According to, according to Jeremiah, you know that prophet, Jeremiah. According to the prophet Jeremiah, in Jeremiah 2:32, he says, "You have forgotten my name, days without number." And the Lord is upset at them for having forgotten his name, days without number. And yet it's the Lord who's made this possible. And we don't understand how that works because God has hidden his name. And he's hidden it to show them that there's something in their hearts. They're not even actively searching for his name. They're not crying out to know his name. They think that they do. There's a sense of arrogance and pride that, that they already know his name. We don't need to go looking for it. In fact, it's so holy, we're just going to keep it hidden. Well, the prophets speak differently. And just because God is doing something doesn't excuse our pride or our sin, in that he uses our sinful nature to teach a lesson or to bring about his final end of good. We are responsible for our actions, and God will use those actions to his good, to the good of those people, even if they're sinful. Rahab was a prostitute, and yet she was used by God to hide the spies and to bring about the fall of Jericho. Boaz's wife, Ruth. Ruth was a Moabite. She didn't honor the God of the Bible, and yet she married a Jewish man, and through famine and other things becomes the wife of Boaz, who is in the line of David. God uses anyone and everyone. And so today, he uses me to tell the story of a stuttering little boy to bring a point about his name. Many things have changed, but certain things haven't. Moses came to the children of Israel in Egypt, and he brought one name, and that name is pronounced Ayah. And the children of Israel in Egypt recognized that name. They recognized that name and then did what Moses told them, because they knew that Moses was from their God, the God that they believed in. So if we go back to the original name of God, it would be whatever name Moses brought. And we know that that name is Ayah because the little boy's name is Jehovah comforts, God comforts. And his name is Nehemiah. And then we look at the other prophets, Zechariah and Isaiah. And while everyone's looking for Elijah, maybe they should be looking for Ayah, because Elijah means God is God. El means God. Ayah means God. Ayah. Perhaps they don't really even know who they're looking for. Isaiah 28:11 says, he will come with stammering lips and of another tongue. Nehemiah, a stuttering little boy that brings forth in a different language, the English language, a name that's been lost for 2,500 years. Is it the Jewish people's fault that they didn't remember the name of God? Yes. Is God going to use that to the good? Yes. Because they're looking for someone who's like Moses, a servant like Moses, a person who will bring one particular name that will prove who he is, and that all the people in Egypt or today will say, that's got to be him. We haven't heard that name in years. No one knows that name unless they're of us. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. Nehemiah, Zechariah, Obadiah, Zephaniah, all the names that end in IAH. Numbers 6:27. Numbers 6:27 says that you should put my name, the name of God, upon your children, that I may bless them. And we know that the children of Israel, put the name of God on their children. Jehovah comforts, Yah comforts. What they thought to be God's name, they associated with the name Nehemiah. The IAH portion of all of these names, at least 126 different witnesses to the name of God, Ayah, over and over and over throughout time. Can a man forget his own name? Of course not. His father knows his name, and he gives his son his name, and his son gives his son his name. There's a lot of things that change in life, but names don't change. Each person knows how to pronounce his name unless someone is so upset that they refuse to pronounce their father's name properly. Is this what happened? I don't know. All I know is that the name of God is Ayah. And Moses came bringing that name. And the rabbis even acknowledge that the verb, 1961, Hebrew 1961 from the Strong's Concordance, that name, HAYAH, is pronounced Ayah, because they use that name in the name that they have decided will be God's name. They say, God's name is Ahayah or HAYAH, a combination of the past, the present, the future forms of to exist. And in that name is the name Ayah. Again, within the name is the name. So they know the pronunciation. They just refuse to say it properly. Nehemiah, Zechariah, Obadiah, Zephaniah, Jeremiah, Ayah, the name of God. God comforts, God this, God that, God these, God those. God. Place my name upon your children. This is how you know the name of God is Ayah. And it came from a stuttering little boy. And a small child shall lead them. And he'll come with stammering lips and another tongue. I pray that you understand. If you want to know more, go to my channel at anaganosco.org. There's a thing called the Rapture. It's coming. Chaim Bloch talks about Elijah, and there's a lot of things in his talk that can be seen as similar to what we're expecting, in that Elijah, when just before the Messiah comes, Elijah will be caught up again. And that's what the rapture is. It's a catching up. It's a taking away, fully alive, not dying, not leaving a body behind, but simply ascending to God in a form, in a spiritual form that can handle that sort of travel through time and space. These are the drawings that my daughter's been doing since she was 5 years old, fulfilling the prophecy of Joel, that Joel 2:28, that your children will dream dreams and have visions, fulfilling the prophecy of, Psalm 8:2, that out of the mouths of babes you ordain praise to vanquish the foe and the avenger. These are the things that have been happening in my life since my daughter was 5 years old. That would be 14 years now. I've documented as much as I can. God's not angry. He just wants you to turn to the right way. I don't think I can say it any clearer than that. I hope that you'll look into these things. I know the name of the God I serve. I know his name is Ayah. I've studied it out. And I hope that you will too. Unspeakable. The unspeakable name of God. And yet it's spoken every day, every time you call your children, whose names end in IAH. God bless and take care.